My jaw literally dropped, you guys, because she said, "I've been very pleased with you." I was shocked. I literally couldn't believe it because based off of her behavior and the way I personally interpreted that, I thought, this woman hates me. She thinks I'm so stupid. She thinks I can't do anything. Hey dancers, it's Kirsten. Welcome back to the Confident Dancer YouTube channel. If you don't know me, I am a former professional ballet dancer and now I work as a high performance coach and speaker, helping dancers optimize their mental health and their performance through mindset work. So, speaking of mindset work, I also talk about a lot of the challenging aspects of being a dancer and how to handle that. So, we're going to dive into an experience that I'm pretty sure all of us have had at one point, and if you clicked on this video, chances are you might be having it right now. And if so, my heart goes out to you, which is dealing with teachers who you feel they just don't like you. We might say, oh, they hate me, they don't like me, they ignore me. It's those teachers that I probably don't have to explain this very much. It's the ones where you can do your best. You can leave your heart out on the dance floor and it doesn't matter either. It feels like they ignore you, like you just don't exist, or nothing you can do is ever good enough, or they play favorites and they're always loving on this one dancer and then it just feels again like you don't exist. If that's your experience, I'm going to talk through some different tips and perspectives on how perhaps you can deal with that. I spent years of my life, especially as a teenager, giving so much energy to the narrative that certain teachers hated me and feeling upset about that, feeling resentful, angry, frustrated. I gave so much of my mental space and so much energy and emotion to that. And I do wish I had a video like this. Now, I'm going to be sharing from the perspective not only of having been there as a dancer, but I'll also share from my perspective as a teacher. I do still teach ballet. That experience being a teacher, is something that's really shaped my perspective on this conversation, actually more than just being an older, more experienced dancer. And that's a big part of the perspective I'm going to be using today to address this issue. Why? It's because I realized only after starting to teach dance and even being invited to be an adjudicator for things like Nutcracker auditions, I have been privy to a lot of conversations with other teachers, seeing how they think about the students that they're talking about. And then I also get to observe how they would act towards the students and then later how they would talk about what they thought about that student. I saw that. I have also witnessed that despite my best intentions, like the love I pour into my teaching, I have also had to be talked to before from dancers or, my boss at a certain studio saying that some dancers felt that I was being mean. Now, it's so interesting because me being mean in my head was me being like really passionate and energetic and holding the dancers to their highest potential. And that was coming from my excitement of like, look at what you can do. I believe in you. I want to help push you to that next level. But for the specific dancers I was working with who didn't know me yet and know kind of how I talk, how I communicate, how I work, and then also I was new to this studio, so I didn't really know how the other teachers interacted with these dancers that I really only worked with those other teachers. So all that being said, we hadn't learned each other's language yet, and it was really not only upsetting, like I definitely cried tears over that experience because I never want anyone to feel that I'm mistreating them or being mean. That like broke my heart. But I also really woke up in that experience to the fact that we all interpret different tonalities, different behaviors, different mannerisms, and facial expressions to mean different things. And that's really important to know, that we mean different things. We're kind of speaking different languages. And so when I've kind of learned more of their perspective in the language of ballet teachers, my mind has really been blown to like all the things that I took super personally when I was young that actually weren't personal at all. Now, I want to balance this out with saying, am I making this video to like excuse teachers who are actually mistreating their students? No. Listen, no. Okay. I've made quite a few videos on this channel about teachers, how to identify toxic or manipulative or abusive behavior, how to identify brainwashing behavior. I've made videos like that, and if I remember, hopefully I will, I'll link them above or below. So I'm no stranger to that, and I do advocate for teachers being trained better on how to talk to students. I do absolutely believe in that. I believe that there's change and accountability that should be happening on both sides, students and teachers. So I do want to say I'm going to give some mention in this video to like what to do if you really feel that your teacher is behaving inappropriately towards you, which again, inappropriately, how do we define that? Could be a bajillion different ways, but I'm going to try my best to touch on that too. So both sides, but considering that the audience, at least I'm intending to speak to in this video, is dancers, I'm mostly going to be speaking to that side and not so much like going on a rant about how teachers should be different because they're probably not watching this video. So anyway, let's get into it. I'm going to start with talking about how this video topic was inspired for today. I was just having a coaching session with a client yesterday in which we were talking about things like how she can perform really well in a rehearsal because she feels that she's dancing for herself. She feels that she's really focused on how she wants to interpret certain movements. But as soon as there's an audience, all of a sudden the attention really shifts to feeling pressure to do well so that her teachers are happy with her and about her performance. So it really shifted to, I'm doing this to hear good job at the end to make sure that you're happy with me, which was really more about them not being upset with her. As a coach, like it's my job to really dissect what is the core issue and then how do we actually address that? Because we actually started that conversation talking about how to handle nerves, and we still got there to that objective of talking about how to calm your nerves appropriately and prepare your mind for a great performance. But for her, the nerves were really coming from a place of pressure to perform and receive validation from her teachers. Then that also led into an awareness of, I kept hearing her say, I don't want my teachers to be upset with me. I really started to dig into, okay, when you say upset, what are the specific things that they're doing in their body language, in their tonality, in their words that read to you as they are upset with me? And when we really broke it down, it was things like, a little face like that, when something wouldn't go exactly as planned. And there were a couple other things like giving corrections in a really like excited, kind of passionate way. And it's totally understandable how that can read as they are upset with me. But when we started to explore now, what is the difference between being upset versus being really passionate about, I want for you to excel. I want for you to feel confident. I want for you to do your best. I'm trying to help you get there. Whatever you just did wasn't quite on the mark, but I want to help you get there. This like, I want to help you kind of energy. Or we explored the difference between being upset and just being frustrated or being exasperated. They're all different things. And then we started to explore the difference between intent versus behavior, separating behavior and intent. Now, that's a more nuanced discussion as well, because someone could really hurt your feelings and then be like, well, that wasn't my intention, and they use it as a total excuse. That's the part where teachers have to take accountability. So like the example of what I shared at the beginning, some students thought that I was being mean, and that really upset me. Now, I could have left that conversation and been like, but that wasn't my intention, so I'm not going to change because they're wrong and I'm right. That's obviously a really immature way to approach it. And no matter which side you're on, teacher or dancer, it's really, really important to take responsibility that no matter what you mean, however it's being interpreted by that person, there's something to shift there on both sides. On behalf of the dancer, perspective, teacher, behavior. So that is important, but since I am talking to dancers today, what I want to emphasize is that it's really helpful for us mentally, and here's one of the first big tips after providing that awareness, is start to separate intention, what you think their intention is, honestly, versus their behavior. So maybe their behavior is reading to you as, they're ignoring me, they are mad at me, they're upset with me because they are raising their voice, they are making a face when I make a mistake, or giving general group corrections, but I feel they're really talking to me, but they're not really addressing me, things like that. So, of course, the teacher can work on articulating their thoughts and feelings more clearly, but what we can do, it's all about asking ourselves, okay, what am I going to do about it? I want to encourage you to start to separate intention from behavior. That's what I did with that dancer I was working with. When I asked her, like, what do you really feel your teachers want for you, truly? What is it that they care about as they teach you? she really genuinely feels that they want her to succeed and excel and to be happy. She really feels that from them. Now, it's good to be honest. If you don't feel your teachers really want that for you, then maybe you can question if that's the right place for you to be under their instruction or not. But okay, once we got that intention and the behavior, we can also, and this is the second tip, start to question your interpretation of their behavior. This is really, really important because I know many examples that I've learned over the years of, for example, I felt that I was being very mistreated by a teacher in the later years of my training. And absolutely, there are some things that she could take responsibility for. She should not have behaved in that way. It was very emotionally abusive towards me, and it left a mark for sure. It was very hard on me. However, what I did learn in the healing process after that, and just reflecting and taking responsibility on my side, is I learned a couple things. First, I was living for her approval. I was so attached to her opinion of me. So attached. So anything she said, any little word, it's like I was just hanging on every word she said. That's on me, not on her. That's something I could have worked on within myself. Now, I just didn't have that awareness back then, and that's okay, but I learned my lesson, and it really helped me going forward to have the maturity and the perspective of my worth as a person, my opinion of myself. My day is not going to hinge on what you think of me. And it took that painful experience for me to realize that. It's okay if it takes being hurt by something to learn a good lesson. I mean, hopefully, as long as you're able to recover from that hurt and move forward and use what you learned for your good. That was my experience. I ended up learning from that teacher that at the end of a whole year, I finally had a meeting with her and a bunch of teachers at my final student evaluation, in which my jaw literally dropped, you guys, because she said, "I've been very pleased with you." I was shocked. I literally couldn't believe it because based off of her behavior and the way I personally interpreted that, I thought, this woman hates me. She thinks I'm so stupid. She thinks I can't do anything. She can't trust me. I don't trust myself, blah, blah, blah. Like, I had this whole narrative going. And I was so thoroughly convinced of that narrative that every time she said anything to me, I was listening to it through that perspective. So it just validated, yeah, you hate me. Yeah, you meant that to be mean. You're trying to hurt my feelings. Like, I was so entrenched in that perspective that it was partially, yes, her behavior should have been different, but also my perspective had a lot to do with how much hurt I experienced. That's a really big lesson that I want to share with you guys, is do what you can to separate behavior from intent. And the other thing is, watch what your interpretations are. I have other very good friends who were super talented, and I would have assumed, okay, since this person is very talented, they receive all the favoritism, all the compliments, all the nice treatment, whatever. And one of my best friends actually said, despite being an actual prodigy, she said, no, from a young age, teachers were like way harder on me than anyone else, because they thought it was their duty to push me harder towards my potential. So she actually wasn't having a lot of fun. She actually never really felt like she enjoyed that benefit of like being a favorite, because she was just experiencing harsher treatment. So despite all of that, and I was even talking to Catherine Morgan in one of my more recent videos, and you'll hear her saying that she really felt that certain people in New York City Ballet, this one guy really hated her, but he actually was trying to push her towards her potential and ended up advocating for her to get to the position that she got to. So I say all that to say, we don't really know what they mean until we hear it from their mouth explicitly. And that leads me to my third point. Hi dancers, I really hope that you're getting lots of actionable takeaways that will really help you. I want to talk about how to go even deeper in this work to really become the confident dancer you want to be, which is my signature one-on-one coaching program called the Confident Dancer Coaching Program. This is a 4-month experience where you and I get to work together individually to go deep into transforming your mindset, your emotional wellness, and your career strategy to really do that inner work, so that you can experience the outward results in your career that you want. Because how many of us get to this point where we realize we can put all the work in, we can try so hard, we can do every workout, we can take every class, but if you feel like trash about yourself, if you don't have that confidence, if you don't have that mental toolbox available to perform under pressure, to go from overthinking and ruminating on a mistake to continue to perform your best. If you don't have that mindset as a performer, it's really hard to be the performer that you want to be and to feel as good as you can possibly feel in this journey that's supposed to feel joyful, right? It's supposed to be our passion. So what we do in this coaching program is we go deep into, like I said, transforming your mindset, your beliefs, all that mindset work that will help you to up-level your confidence so then you can practice different. You can take different actions. You can actually take all that technical work you've been doing and really become confident in it, because so much of it, it's not how much work you put in, it's also that mental component of how you see yourself, what you believe, what you think. That's what I specialize in helping dancers with, so that you can not only have a transformed mindset that helps you to feel your best and perform your best, but then put that into action in a way that helps you achieve your dreams and goals as a dancer. All the while you have support from someone who understands your world, no explanations necessary. So if that is something that you're looking for, if you're tired of struggling with self-doubt, insecurities, performance anxiety, all those mental struggles that are so common in the dance community, reach out. You don't have to settle for staying there forever. There is support that is specialized to help you get to the place you want to be. So if that's something you're interested in, I have 5 coaching spots open for new one-on-one clients every month. They fill up quickly, so be sure to check out the link below to my website, kirstenkemp.com. You can learn all about the program and apply for a free consultation where you and I will talk about your challenges, your goals, talk more about how the program works, and see if it's a great fit for you. So I can't wait to meet you, can't wait to support some of you, and enjoy. Let's get on with the rest of the video. I personally try to practice a rule of no mind reading. It's not allowed. It is not allowed. Now, part of the way the human mind works is we're constantly making assumptions. We're taking little pieces of incomplete information and creating a more complete story, filling it in. Our minds fill it in to make some meaning out of what's going on so that it seems like everything makes sense. Now, the danger of that is if we let our mind just fill in whatever information it wants and interpret things however it wants to, we'll start believing our own stories. We'll start really believing, now the teacher didn't say that she hates me, but I just know. I just know. How do you know though? How do you know? How does it serve you to interpret it that way? Could there be a more empowering interpretation? Now, I do want to say, I want to empower you to ask questions and have conversations that are tough but are important. So few dancers advocate for themselves. That's why I made a whole video about it. I'll link it here. It's all about the importance of advocating for yourself as a dancer and what that can look like in a situation where you feel a teacher isn't treating you right. If you're getting this vibe from them that they don't like you and that's really hindering your experience, then what you could do is, after trying those 3 steps, also ask other dancers, are you seeing that this teacher treats me differently? What are you seeing? What do you think? Are you experiencing this from them? If you're also getting confirmation from other dancers that they're seeing this too, you can talk to that teacher or talk to another staff member who could help mediate that conversation with that teacher. That is really important, and it is something that you can do even if you feel scared to do it. It can be so important to just set the record straight and say, I have been noticing this in your behavior. Here's how I'm feeling as a result. And I want to ask you, is that how you actually feel? Or what are you meaning behind that treatment? What's your intention behind it? What is your thought process? Like, asking a question instead of just being like, this is how you're treating me and it should be different. Yeah, it's important to also ask for what you want to change, but also ask questions. What do you mean by that? What's your intention there? What are you thinking behind that behavior I'm noticing? So then you might end up getting answers that are like actually encouraging. Like, wow, they don't actually hate me. I just thought that they did. So know that you're also allowed to ask. You're allowed to have that conversation, even if it's tough. I've had a couple of those and I'm always glad that I did, even though it can be tough. Now, I do actually want to speak from the teacher's perspective. So many teachers were high-level dancers once, or at least dancers. Like, they understand what it's like to be a dancer. There's this interesting thing that I only started to empathize with when I became a teacher, and I think empathy, compassion, understanding has been a huge aspect of actually healing my past relationships and memories with teachers I had a lot of tension with, I started to see that even though their behavior, I believe it was dysfunctional, I believe they were not practicing mature self-regulation. I don't believe that they were really practicing empathy with the students and getting inside of kind of asking that question, like, how is my behavior potentially coming across to them? I don't think that they were practicing that. I do think some of them were really repeating patterns of trauma and just whatever they experienced from their youth, or even projecting the judgment that they had on themselves currently or as dancers, they were projecting that onto us. Like, we all treat people in some way, some version of how we treat ourselves, or rather we judge others with this similar filters to how we judge ourselves. So I think there was a lot of that going on for sure. But one thing that really helped me to kind of have a more human view of all of it, which I do think is important. I don't want to just villainize people and point fingers. One thing that was really helpful is to realize that there is this dynamic where as dancers, we have goals, we have ways that we want to perform, and we get to take action ourselves to achieve those results. There is something that is very difficult psychologically and emotionally about being a teacher, because inside of you there's a dancer in there. You know what it's like to be a dancer. You have all this experience and some ideas based off of what you've learned through your mistakes and your successes on how you want to just like make the path better for your students. A lot of teachers, even though their behavior is dysfunctional, they really believe they're doing their best, and that's important to empathize with. Even if it needs to be better, somewhere on the inside, they really believe they're doing their best. And it's a complex thing, because just because that's true doesn't mean they should change. It shouldn't change, rather. But what's interesting is, like, you go from being a dancer throughout your life and being like, wow, through my 20 years of experience, I've learned what you should and shouldn't do to get these results. And then you become a teacher, and it's easy in the beginning to have all these big ideas of how you're going to help your students so much and like give them everything they need to succeed. However, there are so many frustrating realizations that you encounter as a teacher. If you're a teacher, comment below. I'd love to know if you have had this experience too, where you realize, A, most students are not yet at the point where they can receive and integrate and even appreciate the wisdom you're sharing with them. Then you are left as the teacher to wrestle with that frustration inside of you of, I have these great things to share and I know it could change your life, but being frustrated at the reality that A, it takes time for a dancer to realize the lesson, integrate it, whatever, and have the results. So it takes time, it takes a lot of patience. That patience part is really hard as a teacher. The other thing is encountering the frustration of, you have to surrender the outcome, and so few teachers do. It's really hard. I have a really hard time with it, surrendering the outcome of my students. Now, I hold the highest intention. That surrendering doesn't mean I'm just like, yeah, do whatever you want, I don't care. It's more of surrendering to the fact that no matter how much I give you, you are in charge of what you do with the information I give. That is what a lot of teachers wrestle with all the time. And it can manifest outwardly as frustration. It just totally gave me a different perspective when I realized that so many of the teachers I thought were really mad at me or they hated me because they were kind of like making facial expressions or raising their voice or whatever. It was that they believed in me. They really have these messages they're passionate about sharing. They just want it to be the path to be better for me. They want me to get this information that they've learned through blood, sweat, and tears, but they're encountering the frustration of, I'm a human, they're not in control of me, they can't get the results themselves. The results a teacher desires are outside of their control to a certain extent. That's hard. It just takes so much like maturity and awareness to get to that point where you manage your inner state as a teacher. And so I think a lot of dancers are seeing teachers' outward behavior and just reading it at face value, but it's not necessarily personal. It's not necessarily about you. Of course, I can't speak for every teacher, but I wanted to share that realization because it's one of the most profound realizations I've had since graduating from my student years. Now, I do want to give a mention to what I'm sure a lot of you have experienced. It's like, not so much I think the teacher hates me because they're raising their voice at me and making faces. It's like what I've experienced a lot. It's just the ignoring, like the feeling of being ignored, like you don't exist, while other dancers are put on this pedestal. That is so frustrating. I totally get it. So frustrating. That is where I'll go back to the tip of no mind reading. Watch your interpretations of the behavior. Yes, it is my belief that every teacher, especially for students who are like, all the students are paying to be there, even if they're on scholarship, I believe everyone deserves equal energy being poured into them. Now, with that nuance of if a student isn't putting in energy, I don't believe it's necessarily the teacher's duty to go above and beyond in continuing to reach out to them if the student refuses to put in the effort. I don't think that's right. However, a lot of students are putting in effort, especially at that pre-professional level. And what happens when you feel ignored? That's tough. Okay, so even though I have my own philosophy, like I don't believe that's right, I do want to say that at least this is the mentality that helped me when I was really frustrated about this as a dancer is yes, I went with the no mind reading rule and the watching my interpretations. I would recommend like just because you're not receiving feedback from them, it doesn't mean that they think you're a bad dancer. It doesn't mean they don't like you. It could actually mean that they trust you. They're not worried about you. They are happy with the progress you're making. Or sometimes I've known teachers who, they see a student and they see just kind of how they're showing up emotionally, and they might, based off of their perspective, think, oh, that dancer doesn't want attention. That dancer needs their space. They're having a hard time. That dancer isn't receptive to corrections. I have noticed that. I've noticed that. Does that mean their interpretations are right? No, just like as dancers, ours might not be right. But I have noticed that. And it surprised me how often I've known teachers who think that stuff, but they don't really express it to the student, which I don't think is very fair. Now, I do want to say about this situation that with all situations, no matter how your teacher is treating you, there's always an opportunity for personal growth in it. So I encourage you to ask yourself, how could this frustrating experience be an opportunity for me to grow personally? What's the lesson in there for me? Could it be that it's your opportunity to practice letting go of your reliance on external validation to feel rewarded or good enough? If you feel like you're living for that, yeah, this might be your chance to practice separating yourself from it. It could be a gift in the long run, as much as it's hard to see it like that right now. And you don't have to see it that way if you don't want to. It could be to step into being uncomfortable and advocating for yourself, having that conversation with your teacher. And the last idea I have actually goes into another tip, which is to use this as an opportunity to, instead of asking yourself the question, how can I dance so that they like me? How can I do it right so they're not mad at me? Ask yourself the question, how do I want to interpret this movement? How do I want to perform this? How do I want to dance today? And your answer can very well still align with the teacher's goals for you. Maybe they want technical precision, all that stuff. But taking the focus off of all my energy is going towards doing whatever I need to do so that they like me, which is only a result you A, can't guarantee because it's outside of your control. B, you would only know if you're successful after that combination or that piece is over. What I always recommend is setting your measure of success, your focus towards gaining rewards through the process of the combination, the class, the year, whatever. Being more process oriented and setting up your own rewards and your own definition of success that's within your control. This is a huge opportunity to work on that. So it's asking yourself, how do I want to dance? And focusing your energy on fulfilling that, setting your own measures of success, working on validating yourself as much as you can, kind of growing in that skill. Self-assessment that's honest, that's a skill. Not just being self-critical, but assessing yourself in an honest, objective way as much as you can. These are all skills that you can develop through the frustrating experience of having a teacher who's ignoring you or not giving you the validation you want. So dancers, this has been a jam-packed video, and just to summarize the points like I've talked about a few times, this could be an opportunity for you to practice the no mind reading rule. Challenge and question your own interpretations of their behavior, and remember that you can choose a more empowering interpretation, but remember at the end of the day, unless you hear that teacher's opinion from their very lips, you don't know. The other thing is use it as a growth opportunity to maybe challenge yourself to stop relying on external validation or to advocate for yourself, whatever it is that you feel is that next step of personal growth for you, this could be a great opportunity to step into that. Another tip I shared was to actually practice understanding based off of the perspective I shared about what the teacher's going through and what their intentions might be, which also went into the point of separating their intentions, what you think their intentions are, from their behavior. Another tip I didn't mention, but I really want to put in there, is that if the teacher's intentions or their values, what's important to them, is very different than what's important to you, you get to choose what kind of information or influence you want to take on from that teacher. For example, if I want to buy a house and I want to get a friend's opinion on that to see if I should do it or I shouldn't, if I know that the friend I'm talking to has the value of don't get into debt, you know, if they listen to Dave Ramsey. So anyway, what I was saying is if that friend is like, you shouldn't go into debt, home ownership is stupid and it's a waste of time, if they just value freedom and moving around the country to a different city every year, if you're asking that friend for their opinion and you know after asking yourself what's important to them, what are their values, if you get that information and then you're asking their opinion, even though your values are long-term financial investment, planting roots in a city, building a community, having a family, whatever, why would you ask them for their opinion? So that's kind of the perspective I really love to take whenever I have had a new ballet teacher. I will listen to what they say and take out of it what's constructive, but there are some teachers where I take in pretty much everything they say because I know their values and I agree with them. And then others, I don't agree with their values. They teach in a really fear-based way. They use shame to control people. I'm like, no, that's not how I live my life. So I will let you teach me how to do ballet. I'll let you remind me to be on my mark, but I'm not going to take any suggestions from you or accept, you know, internally. I can hear you, but I'm not going to accept any suggestions you have about me as a person because I don't trust your values and I don't share them. So anyway, I hope that was really helpful. I'd love to know what you think of this video. I know it was a deep dive, but I feel like this subject deserves that. So also, please, please, please share this with a friend. I know that so many dancers struggle with this experience, and I would love for more dancers to see videos like this, content like this, and they'll be able to see on my channel other videos that I think could really help them out if they're struggling a lot with a circumstance where they're super frustrated with their teacher right now. So please share this with them. I hope it will make their day. I would appreciate that so much as well. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe so you don't miss next week's video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.